we've talked about this kind of idea, this theory on the show before because of our links to Egypt and places like that. Like we talk about the stuff in the past and how science has kind of settled on a date, but that date's not right. And so this article is about Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe, and it says both of them prove conspiracy theories to be right again. And this is looking at recent discoveries from ancient Turkey. Now, I think we're going to tag team this one because it's quite a long article and my voice is not going to last if I try and read it. So, do you want to start? Because it's about Egypt. Can you read that, okay?
Yeah, sure. I'll just be doing this a lot. Everyone has heard of the Great Sphinx of the Giza. This mythical creature with a human head on a lion's body has been carved out of limestone and bedrock in the Giza Plateau. Conventional archaeology claims that whilst the sculpture is the oldest in Egypt, it was only carved around 2500 BC. However, many scientists believe it is much older. Some think it was built to face the constellation of Leo during the vernal equinox, approximately 10,500 BC, whilst others claim weathering of the limestone indicates an equally ancient timescale. For context, Stonehenge in the UK is approximately 5,000 years old, and until recently the oldest megalithic monument was found in Malta and thought to be from around 3,500 BC.
So shall I read the next bit? Yeah. So Robert Schoch believes the core part of the Sphinx must date back to at least 5,000 BC, with his more recent estimates at around 10,000 BC. And this is due to the water weathering and erosion on the Sphinx, which could have only been caused by weather last seen in the area towards the end of the last ice age. And this is something that I've talked about before because I've taken pictures of the Sphinx, and I think if you go up, you can actually see
the weathering.
They're trying to cover it.
They are covering
They are covering that weathering with new stones.
Yeah.
And they're apparently making it look like in the past. But I think that we should leave it as it is. Yeah. We shouldn't be updating these
It's
structures.
survived that long. Are you worried about it now?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, they're clearly trying to hide something, which is what I think anyway. Which I think is really interesting as well. So this does not fit in with current archaeological and historical narratives. And so these theories are called the pseudo-archaeology or conspiracy theories, which we're all familiar with. How could hunter-gatherers produce these monuments? The Neolithic Revolution, when agriculture started to appear, supposedly began approximately 10,000 years ago, but it was not until between 4,000 to 3,000 BC that more sophisticated cultures were meant to have emerged. This status quo was that there was no way ancient temples and megaliths could have been constructed until the advent of agricultural societies which were able to feed architects and builders whilst they undertook their jobs without worrying about their next meal. However, as with many conspiracy theories these days, they were ridiculed by conventional scientists until the evidence became too overwhelming to deny. So, do you want to carry on here?
Yeah, sure. One piece of evidence was discovered in 1995 when Professor Klaus Schmidt began excavating Göbekli Tepe, I can't say that, in southern eastern Turkey. The year before, a Kurdish shepherd had stumbled across a large stone, and the news quickly spread until it reached Professor Schmidt. Previously, ancient discoveries around the world had always been rubbished?
Yeah.
Rubbished? Is that a word?
Yeah.
That's so weird. Rubbished because of the claim of sample contamination causing carbon dating to be inaccurate, subsequent civilization trampling on or modifying sites makes carbon dating very difficult to verify. Göbekli Tepe removed the scope from this criticism due to one of the strange things about this ancient site. it had been purposely and carefully buried. This meant everything was almost perfectly preserved, and there certainly hadn't been any contamination. Carbon dating estimated the site was built around 10,000 BC. Wow.
Yep.
If not earlier. And then intentionally buried 8,000 BC. At first, it was claimed that the site was buried naturally over time, but this was refuted. Firstly, because the site is on the top of a mountain and so sediments is unlikely to accumulate upwards, and secondly, because the infill was loose rather than compacted, which also meant it was much easier to excavate.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, like, if it was dated around 10,000 years ago,
yeah,
then there is a chance that this could link to the flood, like the biblical flood and things like that. So, who knows whether that's true? I don't know if you've heard of the mud flood theory,
yes.
where all these like ancient buildings were actually buried by a huge mud flood that basically covered everything, and that's why the ground is so high on certain buildings. And you're like, this feels like the ground should have been a lot lower.
Yeah.
And I think they have all sorts of theories and suggestions as to why the ground is higher than where the base level should be on these buildings, but it doesn't really add up. And I think that the only thing that explains it is this. And I think Göbekli Tepe is a big example of kind of like the mud flood theory. It's like, it's so obvious that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, keep going.
So gradually the evidence became too strong to deny. A group of people circa 10,000 BC had created ancient temples and carved megaliths weighing tens of tons. However, those who control the narrative don't like it to be changed so quickly. Does this start sounding familiar?
Very familiar.
Miss Science person on Facebook. To the proponents of the old narrative, this did not suggest a cultured civilization lost to history but now rediscovered. It still must have been hunter-gatherers expressing their spiritual side, instead of complex civilizations arising once agricultural societies had been established. The new narrative was that the building of spiritual sites led to architectural societies developing. This just does not make sense. How would hunter-gatherers set aside enough time to develop architectural and craftsman skills if they were still reliant on obtaining food relatively frequently? Moreover, this wasn't one architect and a builder scavenging food from the rest of the hunter-gatherers. This was hundreds, if not thousands of people dedicating months and years to building complicated structures. Surely this would only take place in an agricultural society where food could be provided to the workers, leaving them all their time to focus on construction. One reason given for Göbekli Tepe being constructed by hunter-gatherers was that no human remains or dwellings could be found at the site. However, only 1 to 5% of the site has actually been excavated, so perhaps they just haven't found any yet. As before, going against the new narrative was called pseudo-archaeology or conspiracy theory. Complex civilization just had not been around that long. No arguments. Göbekli Tepe was just a random, unique site, an anomaly. And this is what they kept saying. But recently, new evidence has come to light, which again proved the conspiracy theories to be true. This time from a site called the Karahan Tepe, only 30 miles away from Göbekli Tepe. It had been discovered in 1997, but only recently excavated in the last 2 years. Shit. So this is all quite new to me, actually, because I'd read a lot about Göbekli Tepe because of Graham Hancock wrote a book about it called The Magicians of the Gods, a follow-on for The Fingerprints of the Gods, which was all about Egypt. And so then he moved on to Göbekli Tepe and other sites around the world, like in South America and places like that. Do you want to read the next bit?
Yeah, sure. To date, around 250 obelisks have been found in Karahan Tepe. What makes Karahan Tepe so interesting is that it's actually older than Göbekli Tepe, and the site was purposely buried as well. Furthermore, even though only 1% of the site have been excavated so far, homes have been found, showing that the builders all lived and worked at the site. At Karahan Tepe, archaeologists have discovered intricately carved statues and T-shaped obelisks with similar carvings of animals as seen in Göbekli Tepe. Large serpents are carved into the rock, decorating rooms, obelisks, and pathways. The head below is cut into the bedrock and protrudes outwards.
Look at that.
What the hell is this?
That is mental.
That is weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that looks so freaky.
It does look like, I don't know, like almost like
yeah, what is it?
Someone's been frozen in stone.
Yeah, like Medusa.
Yeah.
Style.
Because look at the rock as well. It almost looks like this is like
they were trying to get up.
Fossilized human.
Yeah.
Or giants.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you said that. Structures such as an amphitheater carved out of the bedrock have been also discovered, which connect to the shrine rooms with large pillars. Some of these are carved from the rock, but others have been cemented into place. It has been suggested that these are phallic symbols. What? Phallic symbols indeed. Many of the human carvings holding their hands on and over their penises. What?
Wow.
What the fuck is this? Is it like a fertility kind of place? Maybe.
Well, they used to use that as like fertility symbols, didn't they?
Yeah.
Do you want me to finish it off?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
What we can be certain about is that we have so much more to discover about our human history. It's foolish to pretend otherwise and to protect false narratives. I love that line. That is so good. I'm going to read that again. What we can be certain about is that we have so much more to discover about human history. It's foolish to pretend otherwise and to protect false narratives. New discoveries are being discovered at Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe almost daily, which may give us new insights into how human civilization developed. This has just been an overview of the 2 Turkish sites showing how it is counterintuitive to call alternative theories conspiracy theories. Humans will discover and achieve far more if all credible theories are discussed and then put to the test. Suppressing information and discrediting people with alternative ideas is always going to send us backwards. Often, as with the discoveries above, the conspiracy theories actually turn out to be true.
Yeah.
So true. However, Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe contain many mysteries that we currently have no answers for. Literally, there's nothing in history that explains these sites. This completely shatters all of the illusions that we were under about human history, and that is exciting to me, and it has been for a long time. That's actually one of the first conversations we had when we met on Tinder. Was like how what we know about the past is all up for debate. Like there's nothing that's set in stone. Literally, like it is set in stone. It's ironic language, I know, but it's just crazy. We're living in the most exciting time to be alive right now. That, except for probably when these structures were built.
Well, it's life. Life is like a discovery at a time, and when you discover a bit more, then you find out a bit more. Then you discover something else, and then you got more information, and you have another theory, and another theory, and another theory. So the theories are theories. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
There's nothing certain
Nothing's
until
set in
we
stone,
die, probably.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is the next part of this text. Many of the carvings at both sites have figures with 6 fingers.
What?
So were the builders a tribe of 6-fingered humans? Where did the people from that time learn their skills? Did they come from an even older civilization that we yet to discover? Or one that we've already discovered but does not fit the narrative? Why were the sites intentionally buried? That is a good question. Was it to preserve the sites as a time capsule to be discovered at a later date? If so, why? Was there a message that they wanted to send to the future? A warning? Something that could not be conveyed with a writing system that would likely be unreadable? Or did a new religion come along and the old one had to be removed? If so, Why was the site not destroyed instead of carefully preserved? Now, I know that was a long article, but I think this is a really interesting thing that basically shows that human history is not what we think it is.
Yeah.
And that's the same with all science. Science is never settled.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose
Yeah.
of science, is to ask questions and question the science and to question the theories. I don't think we're going to find out in our lifetime what happened in previous civilizations.
That's what really annoys me about schools. When they teach you history and science and these topics, they always make it sound like it's a fact.
Yeah.
And you need to memorize it and you need to learn it the way it is.
Yeah.
But no, that is not how it is.
Exactly.
This is how it is for you.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. You don't know. So
Precisely.
they should change that, really.
Now I've got an image here which is coming from Tartaria theory, and this is a really interesting series of images that were painted by Hubert Robert, and he lived between 1733 to 1808. So these are apparently ruins
Look how
of
massive.
ancient structures, and with people living and working within the structures. And so if we just go through, I mean, you can kind of see in this image here, you can see that there's some
grass,
grass
plants
and
growing
life
on
the top of it, which is really interesting.
That's so cool.
And then if you go through, you can see more of these images as well, which I think are really interesting images.
Yeah. Is that in Italy? Looks Roman to me.
It does, yeah, but who knows, really?
Wow. That's pretty cool.
An obelisk.
Yeah. It definitely does look Greco-Roman.
Well, I thought these are interesting images anyway, that kind of relate to what we were just talking about. The kind of idea that these people in these images possibly inherited these
for sure.
structures from a previous civilization that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting anyway. That does look like Italy, that one.
Yeah, it looks like Venice.
Yeah. But this doesn't seem like somebody painting something
from their mind.
No. This looks like they're actually painting it from being there.
Yeah.
And all of these kind of structures don't exist anymore. These were destroyed.
Isn't the detail that?
But you can see that. I mean, this looks like a bank.
It does actually.
So were all of these destroyed, or were they buried? We just don't know. I mean, maybe there's going to be more things that are uncovered in the coming years as well. But yeah, so that's our history is not settled section.